Hi, I'm Joe, and this is the Decahedron Podcast. Hi, everyone. This is Joe. This is a solo episode. James and I were all set to record on Saturday, but then Friday evening, my mother-in-law's heating system broke down and they were unable to repair it. And we're at that time of the year where we're getting below freezing at nighttime. So she came over and spent the night at my house. And with the extra person, I did not want to do any extra recording, put them out of their way, be quiet, I'm recording. Yeah, that wasn't going to fly. So James and I just put off the episode. It was going to be us recording the flip side of the interview where I interviewed him. It was going to be the flip, and I was going to answer his questions. In fact, I asked him, just send me your question list, and I will answer them, and that will be a good episode all by itself. But he refused. I think he really wants to read his own questions. Yeah, so that's why we're not recording. So during the past week, other than the heating breakdown, it was that holiday. It was Thanksgiving week. It was a nice little holiday, a small get-together. There's only 4 of us. I live far away from where I grew up, and so all my family is hundreds and hundreds of miles away in the great state of Rhode Island. My wife, as I mentioned before, is Scottish, so most of her family is in Scotland other than her mother and her daughter. With the 4 of us, that was our Thanksgiving meal, but it was very nice. Good food, always good to be around family on the holiday. And then this past Sunday, we went to see Spirited, a new musical with Will Ferrell and Ryan Reynolds. And it feels weird to say that Will Ferrell and Ryan Reynolds are a musical, especially when you hear them sing. But they still sing better than me, so I guess I can't complain. But yeah, the movie was awesome. It is, of course, another take on The Christmas Carol. But as a musical and modern musical, I liked it. I really liked it. I thought it was going to be bad. So I don't know if it was objectively great or my expectations were just so low that it was easy for it to exceed them. But I really liked it, and I recommend it. It's streaming on Apple if you're more a streaming than a theater person. I like the movie-going experience other than the other moviegoers who don't know to turn off their phone and stuff like that. But besides that, yeah, I like the big screen. In fact, a couple of weeks, I have tickets to go see It's a Wonderful Life on the big screen. Yeah, I like the big screen. I like classic movies. So together, even better. That's what I did this week. Oh, you might have also noticed a new opening for the Joe solo episodes. James finally made an argument that won out. He said, somebody is going to listen to you singing and just stop listening. So I'm like, okay. So I made that rather boring intro that we have there. You and James, but I am not happy. Anyway, I thought this week I would talk about, saying it's me alone, I would talk about something I do alone. Ooh, that sounds wrong. Anyway, now I'm going to talk about Lucky 7. We mention it every so often on the episode. You said the game I'm working on, Lucky 7. The game I'm working on, Lucky 7. I really wouldn't call it a game. I would call it a rule set because much like, say, GURPS or Fudge or Fate or Savage Worlds, maybe a little, not as much for Savage Worlds, but stuff like that. It is not I don't know. There's an argument to be made that a game needs a default setting. Dungeons & Dragons defaults to a rather specific fantasy world. It's not really generic fantasy because there are things that are very D&D specific. The Beholder, the Mimic. So I think D&D worlds don't feel like a generic fantasy world. They feel like a D&D fantasy world. It has that setting baked in, even though there's no hardcore setting, even though if you're not talking about, say, Greyhawk or Savage Coast or whatever, there's still an implied setting when you open up D&D is that you're going to have this medieval European fantasy world, and you're going to have these monsters, and mayhem will ensue. And so that makes it a complete game. One of my favorites, Paranoia, has a very distinct setting, right? Paranoia, you are in Alpha Complex. However many Alpha Complexes are in your world, doesn't matter. You are in Alpha Complex. It's after something has happened, and you're living in this Logan's Run type world, only the computer's insane, and zany adventures ensue, right? Star Trek, Star Wars role-playing games, they all have this implied setting. But like I said, Lucky 7 is a very generic, it's a it's a role-playing engine, it's a rule system, a rule set. I use all those terms interchangeably. just made to pick up and go very rules light. I like to play with a lot of newbies. When I run a game on Roll20, I always say, first time gamers welcome, new gamers welcome. And that always brings in a lot of people who at least tell me that they're playing a game for their first time. And so this is meant to be a very easy introduction. And so for that reason, the core mechanic is easy. And the core mechanic is where the name comes from. The name is Lucky 7, and that's because the core mechanic of the game is to roll a d12. You roll a d12, and you add your attribute bonus. If the result is 7 or better, you succeed at whatever you're trying to do. And that's why it's Lucky 7, because a 7 or better, you succeed. And that's the only thing you need to know to remember the core mechanic is the name of the game. Lucky 7, 7 or better, I succeed. On 5 or less, you fail, of course. And for that 6 result, and I keep looking for a good name for it. Sinister 6, I don't know. Silly 6, I don't know. If you have any ideas, let me know. Anyway, that 6 result, it's like the partial result in Dungeon World, or like the miss by 1 rule, I think, in Mongoose Traveler. Is that a thing? Am I remembering that right? Anyway, if you miss by 1, if you get the 6 in Lucky 7, you can, at your choice, accept a consequence in order to change that from a failure to success. And the consequence is just something like, I was just going to use an example that everybody always uses, and it left a bad taste in my mouth. All the examples I'm coming up with are ones I've heard before. So I'm just going to go with the first one. So if you're climbing up a cliff wall or something, and you get that 6, that's normally failure. Nope, you can't make it up the wall. You're stuck at the bottom. You can say, but I will take a consequence. And so the consequence might be when you get to the top of the cliff, something is there waiting for you that wasn't originally planned to be waiting. Or maybe the bad guys you're getting away from spotted you go up the cliff. Or maybe you got to the cliff and you dropped your backpack. There's so many other things. It does require a GM that's kind of fast on their feet to come up with consequences, but that's usually not a problem for me. In fact, I think it adds a lot of fun to the gameplay. So that's what happens on the 6th result. Really, that is the core rule right there. Nothing else other than the attribute score, which runs between a +1 and a -3. I lied. That runs between a -3 and a +3.
This is all-knowing Joe. The regular Joe that you are listening to is wrong. The real range is -2 to +2. A +3 on a 1d12 is too much of a swing. It's like a +5 on a d20. So, no, it's just -2 to -2. We now get back to regular Joe.
It's the only thing you ever add. There's never any other bonuses. The rest is kind of like, I hate to say it, it's kind of like 5E's advantage rule. Only I've never played 5E. I don't have the 5E books. Actually, I think I have the player's handbook, but that's it. I didn't get the idea for the rule from 5E. I actually had this in my old role-playing game, Decahedron. That's why the podcast is called that, because I happen to own the domain name. And it's the system I used for weaponing armor dice, as that game had them, which is pretty much if you have, we'll use the 5E terms. If you have the advantage, you're going to roll 2 dice and you're going to take the higher. If the GM says that the situation works to your disadvantage, then you're going to roll 2 dice and take the lower. I don't call them advantage and disadvantage. I call it a penalty die or a bonus die. Generally speaking, it's only 1 die. For when I use like magic rules or something, I'll add in multiple dice if you're trying something really, really hard or really, really easy, or you're really, really powerful, whatever. But usually just the 2. Again, keep it quick, keep it simple. It's easier just to track 2 dice on the table. Bam, look, there's your 6. What do you want to do? Or there's your 7. Yep, you made it. Good to go. And that way, you don't have an ever-changing target number, and you don't have all these rules. Oh, what do I need to add for this situation, that situation? It's just, do you have a bonus situation or do you have a penalty? If you have the bonus, roll 2, take the highest. If you have a penalty, take 2, take the lowest. If you don't, just roll 1 die. Bam, plain, simple, easy. Yeah, so that's the core mechanic. There is a little more to it once we get into character advantages and disadvantages and stuff like that. But I think that's enough for this episode. And that can be maybe another Jolo episode sometime in the future. So that's all I have for this episode. Next week, James and I are still not recording, but we have an episode that's in the can, so to speak. And I will be putting that one up. I am working my second job next weekend, so I will be out of town. and will not be able to record. So that's why that's happening. But we will return the week after that. That was me mentally calculating to make sure we weren't too close to the holidays. No, we should be good. We'll record the week after that, and it will probably be the episode where James will interview me, and you can learn more about me. I have no idea what his questions are, which is fair because I didn't tell him what mine were going to be. So I'm kind of excited to find out. Thanks very much for listening. As always, love to hear your feedback. Information is on the outro, which is coming right now. Have a great week, and talk to you soon. Bye.
You have been listening to the Decahedron Podcast. Send email to feedback@decahedron.com. Remember to spell decahedron with a K. Voice feedback can be sent through the Anchor website or by calling 562-RPG-CAST. That's 562-774-2278. Links are in the show notes. Music is courtesy of Kevin MacLeod, logo by Design Cat. Thanks for listening.